Digitization is reshaping the financial world now more than ever. But there is one area that is still dependent on paper, the $18 trillion world of global trade.
The $18 trillion world of global trade.
Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the CYPRX YouTube page. In today's video breakdown, we are going to be discussing in-depth trade finance. We're going to be talking about a long list of specific companies surrounding trade finance. Now, we know that there are several enterprise blockchain trade finance networks. And in today's video breakdown, we're going to be going down the rabbit hole, specifically focusing on the XDC network. Today, specifically, we're going to be tying in partnerships between Contour, R3, XDC network, major banks like Citi, HSBC, things of that nature. So if you enjoy deep rabbit hole dives like this, again, real research, reading documents to you all, we're going to see massive numbers play out in this video breakdown. I'm talking about trillions of dollars in the trade finance industry, potentially flooding this space. So again, stick around for those parts of the video breakdown. If you guys enjoy this, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. We've noticed that about 27% of our viewers are still unsubscribed from the channel. So we do appreciate it if you would smash that subscribe button and smash that thumbs up button. Let me know in the comments down below if you're an XDC holder and you believe in the future of XDC network. So let's jump into today's video breakdown. Lots of documents and valuable information to share with you all today. So for those of you individuals who aren't familiar with the XDC network, real fast, I'm sorry for those of you who are, but there are individuals out there that still need enlightenment. So the XDC network, real quick.
What is Xinfin? Xinfin stands for Exchange Infinite. It is the next generation of the global computer network, connecting communities and enterprises around the globe using blockchain technology. The network is powered by its native fuel, called Xinfin Digital Contracts, or XDCs. Xinfin is a first-of-its-kind hybrid blockchain network. It combines the power and transparency of public blockchains with the security and speed of private networks.
So we're going to skip down here. We're going to talk about Contour today as well. So
Contour, backed by the world's leading trade banks, is building the network to streamline trade finance and create new global standards for the entire ecosystem, where corporates and financial institutions can collaborate seamlessly, digitally, in real time with trusted data.
Now, this is going to be massive because in some way, shape, or form, either directly or indirectly, Contour and XDC are partnering. Now, again, watch how I'm going to tie all this in. Major banks, R3, major entities when it comes to the global trade finance network space. So we're going to start here on the Contour website, and we're going to go over their network and their list of partners. Okay, so it says right here, our banks, and we know what Contour is, right? Contour is a global network of banks, right? So this plays an important role. We see major banks like BNP Paribas. What I want you to focus in on are these names right here. We see Citi, we see HSBC, we see ING, we see Standard Chartered. Now, why? Because these all tie into the XDC network partners, right? So again, Citi, HSBC, ING, Standard Chartered. Moving on. This is a very interesting fundamental that came out in 2020 from Contour. Contour welcomed Citi into trade finance network. Now, I'm going to be reading some pieces of these fundamentals. Like I said, it's going to be very cut and dry. But for those of you individuals that enjoy in-depth research like this, it's truly going to be mind-blowing what is about to happen to the trade finance industry from now until 2027, all the way up until 2030. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these documents. So it goes on to say, today, Contour has announced that Citi will join its trade finance network, increasing the number of banks that have invested in Contour as part of an industry-wide global collaboration effort. This investment through Citi Ventures will help Contour continue to grow as it develops the open network to create seamless trade and digitize the outdated process. Contour's network focuses on improving the letters of credit process. Traditionally, paper-based Contour digitizes LOCs to allow banks and corporates improved efficiency and greater transparency by building connectivity and trust between all parties in the transaction. Now I have R3 quarters blockchain highlighted right here. This is going to play an important role later on in connection with XDC. So it goes on to say this is achieved by using R3's Corda blockchain in a growing partner ecosystem. Okay, pay attention to that. We'll come back to that. So remember R3. Now, in connection, again, we see Contour welcoming Citigroup into trade finance. Well, this is a massive PDF that was released, I believe, this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, March 2023. Money, tokens, and games, talking about trillions of dollars in value, and this was put out by Citi. Now, who was a participating member in creating this PDF? Very interesting, again, either directly or indirectly in connection with Citi, Contour, R3. We see right here, I'm hopefully not butchering this gentleman's name, Sunil Senapati, Chief Operating Officer of Xinfin, the XDC network, right? Now, to throw around some very interesting numbers, this part of the PDF right here is very interesting. It goes on to say, trillions of dollars of value. Almost anything of value can be tokenized, and tokenization of financial and real-world assets could be the killer use case blockchain needs to drive a breakthrough. We forecast $4 trillion to $5 trillion of tokenized digital securities and $1 trillion of distributed ledger technology-based trade finance volumes by 2030. Now, personally, I think that this is a low ball. I think that we're going to see a lot more. But again, just to throw around some trillion-dollar numbers when it comes to the trade finance ecosystem, again, long-term valuations, keep that in mind as we're going through these documents. This is not going to be some type of overnight relay race that's going to make you rich quick. Okay. So moving on. This was a very interesting document in connection with R3 and Contour. This is a document, a PDF that they put out, a case study where it goes on to say the network of networks digitalizing trade finance. Contour is unlocking untapped potential in the traditional trade finance by harnessing the power of enterprise blockchain, boosting speed, visibility, and trust across the international trade financial ecosystem. It goes on to read, blockchain is a key technology that we are exploring and using with our own customers and now using for ourselves with the completion of this transfer on Corda, right? So very interesting to say the least. Let's move on. I have this pulled up for you guys. This was a very interesting read. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole on this one. This is going to connect us in some indirect and direct partnerships with Corda, R3, and Contour. So it goes on to say, Xinfin's XDC network is chosen as the first blockchain company to assist the TFD initiative. This is the Trade Finance Distribution Initiative. Okay. Watch how I'm going to connect this all. It goes on to say, we invite Xinfin's XDC network to the TFD initiative. As this empowers us to fill, here's a major number right here, the US $19 trillion trade finance asset class with any type of financier through a tokenization of digital assets. So remember I said the Citi PDF, in my personal opinion, lowballed the number that's going to take place in the trade finance ecosystem with distributed ledger technology-based solutions of $1 trillion by 2030, where they're solving a $19 trillion trade finance asset class problem, right? So we see right here, the members at the TFD initiative include major worldwide financial institutions. So we're going to pause right there and we're going to go over to the TFD initiative website, again, in connection with the bank members that I showed you all on Contour. We see HSBC, just to run through these again. We see ING, we see Standard Chartered, right? Okay. Now, this is all very interesting. Remember, I told you guys, this is a global web, either directly connected or indirectly connected partnerships. It is a massive web of trade finance networks. So the TFD initiative members, and we scroll down here, and what do we see? We see Standard Chartered is one of those members, again, in connection with Xinfin, whom we know is a TFD member. We see HSBC, we see ING. We scroll down here just to say a couple more. We see SureComp, and then we see XDC, again, either indirectly or directly correlated. Now, I highlighted SureComp. Okay, now if we come over here, again, connecting the dots, showing you all how deep the web goes, we see this came out March 16, 2023. Contour and SureComp enter a strategic partnership to accelerate interoperability between digital trade finance solutions. This goes on to read, Contour, the global digital trade finance network, has today announced that it is partnering with SureComp as a part of the collaborative vision to drive the digital transformation of trade finance across financial institutions. The new collaboration between SureComp and Contour addresses this issue by streamlining and simplifying trade finance processing, leading to a new business opportunity, improved trade productivity, and ultimately a sustainable future for global trade. Now let's pause right there and head over to an xdc.org fundamental that came out where it talks about fintechs tackling the trade industry's most complex conundrum, interoperability. Now, this came out September 19th, 2022, so at the end of last year. Some interesting highlights from this to, again, either directly or indirectly connect SureComp with XDC. We see right here, most new trade standards introduced in the last 2 decades, this right here, this fundamental plays an important role, failed to scale. Only those mandated by regulators, and we're going to get into this, again, remember that, only those mandated by regulators, ISO 222 and payments and SEPA, got implemented. That fundamental right there is majorly important. It goes on to read, what the industry needs are additional technology bridges to help the many stakeholders connect, interact, and transact across the various segments of the market. Notice how it says many, right? And this is exactly what open-minded fintechs have been delivering over the last 2 years. We take a look at some of them below. Now, some of them below are again mentioned. We see SureComp, we see Anizio, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. We see XDC, right? Okay. So let's read this part of the fundamental again from xdc.org to tie this all in back to Contour's partner of SureComp, right? So here we see a public DLT in particular brings value for tracking the life cycle of e-original documents and guarantees a negotiable instrument across counterparties. Technology vendors Anizio has successfully demonstrated this capability to deliver the MLETR compliant technology embedding distributed ledger technology functionality. Incumbent trade vendors Finastra, China Systems, and SureComp have embedded Anizio's e-original technology to deliver enhanced value proposition to banks and corporates. Now we know SureComp just partnered with Contour, but it specifically talks about Anizio on the xdc.org website. And now we know if we head over here to this fundamental, Anizio welcomes new ITFA DNI initiative members. And who's one of those members? XDC, right? So we know that either directly or indirectly, they are partnered in some way, shape, or form. Now, even to further tie that in, we see right here, this is I believe it was an interview that was done where you could have gone on and asked the XDC network or the XDC community anything, right? Xinfin community questions. And if we scroll all the way down here to some of the questions that were asked, some very interesting things, again, to tie these partnerships in, it goes on to say right here, XDC is designed to be a governance, utility settlement, and reward point token for the TradeFunX platform. The price of XDC will move with the stable adoption of TradeFunX. I thought that you guys would enjoy that because, again, what we're seeing from the majority of these documents is the trade finance platform, the trade finance ecosystem. It's going to be a slow, drawn-out transition. Okay, we're going to get into that in later fundamentals that I have to share with you all. But it is going to be $1 trillion ecosystem that migrates over to distributed ledger technology networks, right? So I thought that that little tiny clip right there was interesting. The price of XDC will move with a stable adoption of TradeFunX. So again, be patient, right? This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. And I'm not telling you guys to go out there and get XDC. I'm just letting you guys know this is not something that's going to make you rich tomorrow, right? Moving on. This was interesting. It says, we have a meeting with Contour, formerly known as Voltron, this month. So this solidifies that they are either directly or indirectly partnered with Contour. It goes on to say, we need our space and time to work out a commercial agreement, okay? Now, to continue down the rabbit hole, trade tech predictions for 2023 in correlation with this last sentence right here, the price of XDC will move with the stable adoption of TradeFunX, right? So trade tech predictions for 2023. This is very interesting. It goes on to read, 2022 was a year of ups and downs for trade technology, but we expect to see technology play an increasingly important role in trade finance in 2023. Now, remember, heading back to this fundamental right here, okay, if we scroll up, remember, most new trade standards introduced in the last 2 decades failed to scale. Only those mandated by regulators got implemented, okay? So I'm going to show you all again how XDC is one of those networks that was mandated by regulators, okay? So I'm going to show you guys that, right? So moving back to this fundamental, to continue, it says, there are many questions about how these new technologies will be integrated into trade finance. It is imperative that conversations continue to be held by industry experts, hopefully leading to new and innovative answers. To try and find some of these answers, TFG's Brian Canup asked industry leaders about emerging trade technologies, important strategic focuses, and corporate approaches in an increasingly tight market. It goes on to say right here, some individuals that were tied in with these predictions. We see Alisa DiCaprio, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right, from R3, right? And then we also see Patrick Zakar from Anisio, who we know is a partner of whom other than XDC Network, right? So very interesting down here, it goes on to say, digital trade ecosystems will accelerate in 2023. Paper documentation and signatures have long burdened the industry, stunting the growth of digital and inclusive trade. Overcoming these barriers is no easy feat, but the progress is happening. The model law for electronic transferable records, again, that is the acronym MLETR, laid the foundation to make eDocs legally valid. This has since been adopted by several jurisdictions, including Bahrain, the UAE, Singapore, and recently the UK. We expect more markets to adopt the MLETR in 2023 and beyond, which will have a significant impact on international trade. It will become easier and cheaper for firms to buy and sell internationally while promising real progress in reducing the trade finance gap for MSMEs. To support this infrastructural growth, banks will need to prioritize digitization. Okay, so that was a massive statement. Again, predictions for 2023, they're saying that this landscape will continue to improve and that progress is happening. Now, I had this document right here, this fundamental pulled up for you all, MLTR as a model for the digital trade. One highlight from this, it says, digitalization has become a global priority. That's a big one right there. But efforts to digitalize trade have been hindered by legislative gaps. So again, in connection with the previous fundamental where it says most new trade standards introduced in the last 2 decades, only those mandated by regulators got implemented, right? We're going to get into that, okay? So this was another very interesting fundamental right here, just to throw some more trillion-dollar numbers at you guys. It goes on to say, according to the Boston Consulting Group, trade finance model global trade should hit a new high of $25 trillion by 2027. So remember how I told you all the Citi PDF that predicted a $1 trillion market capitalization for trade finance by 2030, or whatever it was that they were predicting, right, was a low ball. I mean, this is a $25 trillion by 2027 prediction right here. It goes on to say, global trade flows are expected to grow from 2018 to 2027, reaching a US $25 trillion total, right? And this is again from the BCG, Boston Consulting Group, excuse me, right? So massive numbers again, and this is on the Trade Finance Global website, okay? Now, moving on in connection with XDC and R3, right? Alongside, obviously, of course, Contour, which we've already spoken and talked about, the major banking institutions that they're connected with, okay? We know that they're tied in with R3. So just to tie this all in, we're talking about networks being mandated by regulators. We've talked about R3. We've talked about Contour. We've talked about partners that each of them have involving XDC, Contour, R3, major banking institutions, things of that nature. Okay, so now let's go down the rabbit hole of XDC in connection with R3. So this is an old fundamental that came out. This is a tweet that was put out by CSP System. It goes on to say, R3 quarter network set to go DeFi with XDC digital currency. And this is the fundamental when you click on that. And I have some very interesting highlights for you all on this, okay? I have a couple more fundamentals for you guys. By the way, if you all are enjoying this video breakdown and you hold XDC, smash that thumbs up button and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, okay? Especially if you like those trillion-dollar numbers that I just threw at you all from these PDF documents, right? Giving you guys hopefully a future perspective on the long-term view of the potential possibilities that this specific part of distributed ledger technology has to offer, okay? Now, this goes on to say, R3's quarter network, backed by many of the world's largest banks, announced Tuesday a group of former RBS bankers, now known as LAB 577, is bridging the way for the exchange Xinfin, a blockchain focused on the trade finance space. Its native token, the Ethereum-compatible XDC, will be used as a settlement coin inside Corda. I thought that that was massive. The first currency across is XDC, but this lays the groundwork to connect Corda to ERC20s and other cryptocurrency networks, said LAB 577 director Richard Crook. What you should see here is the age-old challenge of interoperability being solved. It goes on to say, Xinfin co-founder Atul, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this one, Atul Kakad, explained that XDC is a public network, but one that should appease regulator concerns. You guys see that right there. Among banks and financial institutions eyeing the potential of more open blockchains. And what did we go over in the previous fundamental right here? Again, most new trade standards introduced in the last 2 decades failed to scale. Only those mandated by regulators got implemented. So that was an interesting highlight right there, okay? Because this article right here is saying that XDC is a public network, but one that should appease regulator concerns, right? Now I have an interesting article that's tied in with this. This article reads, a group of former bankers building on R3's public Corda network is touting the first digital currency for the ecosystem dubbed XDC. Now coming down here in connection with this regulatory framework that we've been mentioning all throughout this video, it says, this ensures that XDC meets the G20 sanctioned Financial Action Task Force FATF standards on digital assets to deal with anti-money laundering AML risks, a challenge that Ethereum-based DeFi projects continue to be unable to address, Crook said. So I thought that that was interesting. So in connection with the Financial Action Task Force standards, these are those standards right here. Now, these were updated February 2023. Now, I just want to give you all a general overview of how a digital asset like XDC can meet the FATF requirements. Real fast, we're going to talk about KYC and customer due diligence. Now, we all know, or at least if you do research like I do, you know that to comply with this requirement, specifically KYC and customer due diligence, XDC and its associated VASP, Virtual Asset Service Provider, that's an acronym you guys should remember, would need to implement robust customer due diligence measures and record-keeping procedures. Remember that because we're going to go over that in a later PDF. Now, they would also need to have a risk-based approach. XDC and its associated virtual asset service providers would need to apply a risk-based approach to their AMLC CFT measures in order to meet the FATF requirements. Now, there's a couple of other things that they would need to meet, like suspicious activity reporting, the travel rule, licensing and registration. Again, you can all find those things in this document of the FATF international standards, right? So just to show you guys what specifically I was talking about via some supporting documents with the KYC and the risk-based approach in connection with XDC. Well, this is from the tech white paper by Xinfin. Now it goes on to read, this is a mouthful. It says, groups of nodes can further form fully permissioned networks with their own private state that is accessible only to authorized members. For instance, let us assume that a private marketplace for goods and services is set up in the network. The specifics of the trade between parties is not accessible to Network 2, but the record of individual trades are stored as hashes on the public state that is shared by all, such that even in the private network, there is an immutable record of transactions. Now, remember, I told you all to meet the FATF requirements, they would need to do what? They would need to be able to comply with this KYC and customer due diligence requirement, and XDC and its associated VASPs would need to implement robust customer due diligence measures by having a robust record-keeping procedure, right? And you guys can see that in their white paper, it literally mentions that they have a full record of individual trades, right? Very interesting. Now, this goes on to connect the KYC AML CFT requirements that the FATF put out, okay? And it goes on to read, Xinfin will seek necessary user KYC information for the XDC wallets. The users on the Trade Finex platform, beneficiaries, suppliers, and financiaries will also be required to provide basic and sufficient identity information regarding individual or institutional details, including contact details. I'm not going to bore you guys. I feel like this is really boring. I hate that it's boring, but you know what? These documents and these PDFs, they mean things, and they're put out to individuals for you all to do the research, yet 90% of the population will not take the time to read them. Now, this article right here, also from Xinfin.org, goes on to talk about KYC and AML procedures, and it says, for Xinfin, what matters most is the security and safety of its users, and therefore the company requests all the identity proofs and documents of each one of its users. As a result, Each transfer made on its platform using the protocol is identified and known. Since the global business ecosystem calls for a refined international buyer identification and verification unfolding, the competent KYC policy embraced by Xinfin supports identifying its users and verifying his identity by analyzing their documents in an independent manner. So, with all of this in mind, direct partnerships, indirect partnerships, we talked about Contour, we talked about R3, we talked about major banks, we talked about XDC. Understand that there are several enterprise blockchain trade finance networks that you all can go and do research on. This is, again, going to be $1 trillion migration from the old way of doing things, the paper-based way of doing things in the trade financial ecosystem, over to the distributed ledger technology-based system that is being fine-tuned and fully integrated with our financial markets. Many blessings to you all. I know that this was a mouthful, one of those in-depth video breakdowns that probably bored you all to death. If it didn't and you all enjoyed in-depth research like this, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, smash that thumbs up button. Let me know in the comments down below if you're a holder of XDC and you believe in the future valuation of XDC and the XDC network. As always, this is not financial advice. This is simply just a research video showing you all some interesting fundamentals that have come out in recent years. As always, do your own personal research. Take it upon yourself. If you invest in a project, don't just watch an influencer on the internet space. Go and open these documents and read them yourselves to generate your own bias and your own opinion. Be cognizant, be aware out there. Many blessings to you all. As always, I will see you all on the next video breakdown.